guys, so it's Morgan here from Life Literacy Right, and we are actually videoing in my basement right now. This is the kids' playroom, and we finished this year. It's like a small little room. It's not even really a full room. Like, we have concrete walls that we painted white, and we added some carpets from Costco to make it feel warm and cozy. And then I finished this playhouse for my children. It's supposed to be an outdoor playhouse. It was from Costco, and I painted it in the green and white and put lights on it and put a little kitchen in it. And then I have their toy box behind me, and then I'll kind of move. Over in that corner, we have their Lego box. And the reason I'm filming down here tonight is because I want to talk a little bit about minimalism and how it's affected my life with 3 children, and also how it's affected my life as a teacher and just managing everything. So I would say probably a year or 2 ago, I started kind of getting on board of the idea that less is more. And I would say definitely after I had the 3rd child, with a 3rd baby around, stuff just multiplies. And I just found that the more stuff I had, the more messes I was picking up while I was trying to take care of the baby and like breastfeed or change her, put her down for a nap. My toddler, who is 3, was getting into all kinds of things and pulling out more and more messes. And then my 7-year-old had his kind of own range of messes. And so needless to say, we had to set some structures in place in our household for me to function and just have sanity. But I also knew that we just had too much stuff. If there's less stuff, there's less opportunity for messes. And then I came across a channel, and I'll link it below, that I love. She talks about minimalism in her home. She has 4 children. It's called Minimalist Mom. And she talked about paring down all of their stuff. And what most inspired me, there was a video she had where she said that her kids basically have like one, it's kind of like one IKEA drawer chest of toys. And out of 4 kids, that's all they need. And they do have a separate like craft area, but as far as in toys, she said that was enough, because what she realized is the more toys they had, the more that sometimes they struggled to get along, they would fight, they would be more agitated, they would struggle with imagination, sometimes they were less inclined to play outside, a lot of the toys got neglected. And so I was just so inspired by that when we created this playroom as a place for the kids to come, first of all, I do not keep toys anywhere else in our house. So I do keep one bucket. It's like a small little square bucket upstairs in the front room for the baby. And it's just one tiny bucket of baby toys. That's it, like little chew toys and things like that. And I have a rule that if I ever get too much, like from a grandparent or whatever, that goes above the level of the bucket, then I get rid of something out of the bucket to keep it all able to fit within that one bucket. And the reason I keep that upstairs is because often I'm up there with the baby, but the other 2 kids like to play down here. But in this playroom, what we did is we went through, and I'll see if I can insert some pictures into this video, and donated probably almost all the stuff. All the stuff. And nice toys, good things. And, you know, one of the things that person had said on their channel that also inspired me was the idea that if it's sitting there unused and you could bless somebody else with it, if there's some other child in need out there that has nothing or very little, and you could bless them with it while your kid's throwing it in a corner or neglecting it, or you're holding on to the what if they play with it someday, or maybe you spent a lot of money on it, so you're hoping your kid will play with it to make the money worth it, but your kid just doesn't show any interest. We have to let go of those concepts, and we have to be willing to pare down our children's stuff. And I didn't do this to my kids until I had done it to myself first. So I did a previous video about it getting ready with me, and I showed how I'd minimalized my wardrobe, and I also minimalized a lot of the stuff I had. And so that was important to, first of all, just start doing it throughout my whole household so that I was getting practice with letting go of things long before I hit this room. And then the other thing is I sort of involved my kids in the process. The oldest kid, yes, and I talked to him and explained to him kind of the reasoning behind it. And he really, after a while, got on board and was actually adding stuff to the donate pile. And what I did is with each kid, I really pared down to what is the core thing that they play with. So my son, he is just very intrinsic minded, like he loves puzzles and Legos and building things. So we kept an entire bucket of Legos. Let's see if I can show you his bucket. And I'm okay with that because he's able to put his stuff in there. My daughter is very much into playing house and playing with her babies. And I would say at one point she probably had around 10 baby dolls, maybe more. She had all kinds of stuff that grandparents had bought and friends had bought and I had bought, because sometimes we are the source of the problem, and I had to come to terms with my own spending habits as well, because if I don't, then all this stuff comes back in and it reaccumulates. And so I narrowed down my daughter's stuff to, okay, what are her 2 favorite baby dolls? What are the ones she always has with her or plays with? And kind of what's my limit, all right? Because then anything beyond that is excess. They don't really need it and they don't really play with it. And then my rule now is that any of the extra toys we have, they have to fit in this toy box. So I brought us down here because tonight, let me take the camera here and show you. This on the floor is our little mess here. And I wanted to show you this because this is the most messy it can get. And so I literally can clean this up in about 1 minute. And cleaning in less than 1 minute is important to me, and here's why. Because of my goals, my long-term goals. So in this past year, I've become more, as I get rid of more things, I'm asking myself what is most important in my life. And 2 things come to mind. I want to connect and grow more in my walk with God, and my spiritual life, and just getting to know Jesus more and more and his heart for others. And part of that in my head is learning to love a small group of people in the best way I know how. And that small group in my head has been my neighbors, my students, and then my brothers and sisters in Christ at my church. And so my husband and I, we started hosting an in-home Bible study every other week. The men would meet 1 week, the women the next week. And part of that, being able to host minimalism has helped me with that goal, because there was a time in my life where I would get stressed and my house might have been messy. And some people might say, well, why do you care? Just let people come into the mess. And I'm okay with that, but I need things to be manageable and functioning. If I'm working full time, if I have 3 kids, and I also have these goals of wanting to connect with other women and my husband to connect with other men. So minimalism has suited that goal because I know that I can get my house together quickly. And then in the case of my children, my goals with them are to increase their creativity and their ability to get along with one another, both of which this has multiplied exponentially. I would have never thought that taking away so much of their stuff would make them so much more creative and at peace in this play space, but it really has. They can come down here and play for hours with a very small amount. My daughter can imagine whole worlds with 1 baby doll. She doesn't need 10 different dolls. And if in her mind she wants an extra doll, she can imagine it. That's what we did growing up. And my son, he can come down here and create the most amazing Lego creations with no guide. And I see the difference it's made in them. I see how they can play and get along better. And I see the peace that it's brought in our family. And so I'm still pursuing that journey. This is one aspect, and I hope in kind of upcoming videos to share different parts of our house and how I've done this, especially in areas like the kitchen. That's the area I think that is the most used and can get the most messy. But the playroom is this, the second big one, especially with all the kids. So I wanted to share with you guys, I'm gonna pull it. I've been reading a book that kind of encourages me in that journey, and obviously my Bible study encourages that because I've been studying Gideon right now, where God tells Gideon to pare away 32,000 men from his army and to take on the enemy, which is 300. And Priscilla Shirer leaves her readers with the question, what is God paring away out of your life right now? And especially with the thought of the virus that's going around in the world and how people are quarantined to their homes, I wanted to make this video because now more than ever, God has cut away all of the distractions and the fluff that we don't have to have. We can have, probably for the first time in history, time in quiet and silence and stillness in our homes with God. And are you using this time and filling it with anxiety and worry and filling your head with daily news reports? Or are you censoring that and taking this time and filling it, excuse me, sorry, seasonal allergies, not the virus, filling it with God's word? And so in this book, it's called When Less Becomes More, and it's by Emily Lay, and she wrote some other books on simplifying your life, but this particular one is all about kind of the mental simplification. And I just want to read this little section that I read tonight, and I'm going to kind of close with that, and I love it. It says, let's see, I'll start here. You can do it all, but should you? We have a finite amount of focus and a finite amount of space in our brains. Neither of these is unlimited. This has been the single most revolutionary realization for me. You and the woman who existed 100 years ago. Before television and computers and the internet and smartphones and t-ball leagues and iCow had the same mental capacity in your head. Her core focuses were different than yours are now, but she had a much smaller pile of things that required her daily thoughts and attention. You have hundreds, if not thousands, more. The space in your head and heart is sacred. Protect the space in your head and heart as holy, and only allow what's truly and specifically significant in. I love that because our great-great-grandmother, living 100 years ago in a place where they didn't have smartphones, where they didn't have the news constantly distracting their heads and minds, we have the same space in our heads as they did. And we are filling the space with so much more. And we're not really allowing the spots of emptiness and stillness. And I think for the first time in a long time this week, I feel like being home with my children, I'm really seeing them. I'm really seeing myself and some things that I've probably needed to work on for a while, but I've been filled up with so much busyness and to-do lists. I'm seeing some things about my spouse and getting to know them. This is our opportunity, ladies. This is the time where God has given us a space and cleared out all the distractions in the sense that it's only what distractions we allow in. And so if you are at home over the coming weeks, I would challenge you to think about maybe your material things, maybe what is insignificant in the midst of that. Because what I've learned most on this minimalist journey, it's about quality over quantity. It's not how much you have, it's do you value and enjoy and treasure the things you do have. So how do you pare down things to your most favorite, the things that truly are significant to you? The Legos are significant to my son. The house is significant to my daughter and my son. Actually, we all worked on building it, and the kids enjoy the few toys they have in it, and there is peace in our home. So I'm just gonna leave that challenge with you. Find in your headspace, when less becomes more, that more is God. It gives him the time to come in and fill the empty spaces with what truly matters. So, what are you going to get rid of today? Either material items, or maybe it's something that is causing you stress and anxiety, and maybe you need to take a break from it. Maybe you need to set some limits on it. Maybe you need to find a place in the space and stillness that God has given us. Thanks for watching.